My child. They had already chosen the wedding date. The families were smiling. Your person was expected to say yes. But they couldn't stop talking about you. Listen carefully. The room felt warm with excitement, but inside your person's heart there was a storm nobody could see. Relatives sat together discussing the future, parents exchanged hopeful glances, and everyone believed they were about to witness the beginning of a beautiful marriage. Everything seemed perfect from the outside. The family was respectable, the proposal was considered ideal, and the timing appeared right. To everyone watching, this should have been one of the happiest days of your person's life. Yet the more people spoke about marriage, the more your person felt trapped between what was expected and what was truly hidden inside their heart. As conversations continued around them, they tried their best to focus on what everyone was saying. They listened to discussions about wedding plans, future responsibilities, and the life they could build with someone else. But something strange kept happening. Every time they imagined the future being described to them, another face appeared. Every road they tried to picture somehow led back to the same person. No matter how hard they pushed those thoughts away, they always returned to you. The pressure started subtly. An aunt smiled and reminded them that opportunities like this do not come often. An uncle spoke about stability and security. Friends encouraged them not to overthink. Everyone believed they were helping. Everyone believed they were guiding your person toward the correct decision. Yet with every word they heard, an uncomfortable feeling grew stronger. It was not fear of marriage itself. It was the fear of saying yes while their heart was still holding on to something unfinished. Don't skip. Your person had spent a long time pretending they were over everything connected to you. They told themselves life had moved on. They convinced themselves enough time had passed. Whenever your name entered their mind, they quickly distracted themselves with work, responsibilities, or other people. On the surface, it looked like they had accepted reality. But deep down, a small part of them never stopped wondering about you. A small part of them never stopped asking questions they could not answer. What if things had happened differently? What if certain words had been spoken? What if the connection they felt was never meant to disappear? Those questions stayed hidden for a long time, buried beneath daily life. But now, sitting in a room where everyone expected them to agree to a marriage, those questions suddenly returned stronger than ever. The conversation eventually turned serious. One family member directly asked your person how they felt about the proposal. The room became quieter. Smiles remained on people's faces because they expected a positive answer. After all, why wouldn't they say yes? Everything looked perfect. Everything made sense. But your person hesitated. Only for a second. Yet that second felt like an hour. Several people immediately noticed. The confidence they expected wasn't there. The excitement they expected wasn't there. Instead, there was uncertainty. And nobody understood why. Your person lowered their eyes and tried to answer, but before speaking, a memory appeared unexpectedly in their mind. It was not a dramatic memory. It was not a life-changing moment. It was something simple connected to you. A conversation. A laugh. A feeling they thought they had forgotten. Yet somehow that small memory carried more emotion than everything being discussed around them. For the first time, they realized something that terrified them. They were being asked to commit to a future while still emotionally connected to the past. Don't skip. As more relatives encouraged them to agree, your person's heart became heavier. Every argument sounded logical. Every reason sounded practical. Yet none of it created the certainty everyone expected them to feel. Instead, they found themselves comparing everything to you without even meaning to. The way people spoke. The future being described. The emotions they were expected to have. Nothing felt the same. One cousin jokingly asked if there was someone else. The room laughed. Your person didn't. And suddenly the laughter faded. Because their silence created a question nobody had considered before. Was there someone else? Nobody knew your story. Nobody knew your importance. Nobody even knew your name. Yet in that moment, your presence filled the room without you being there. Your person quickly changed the subject, but the damage was done. Their reaction had revealed more than they intended. Family members exchanged confused looks. Some became curious. Others became concerned. The simple marriage discussion was no longer simple. Now everyone wanted answers. The harder people pushed for a decision, the more your person felt themselves drifting into memories they could not control. They remembered moments when thinking about you brought comfort. They remembered moments when losing you brought pain. They remembered times they almost reached out but stopped themselves. Most importantly, they remembered how no one else had ever made them feel exactly the same. That realization became impossible to ignore. For months they believed they could move forward. For months they believed time would erase everything. For months they believed another future would naturally replace the one they once imagined. But sitting there proved otherwise. Because if their heart had truly moved on, why were they thinking about you now? Why did every discussion about marriage somehow lead back to you? Why did the idea of saying yes feel less frightening than the idea of permanently closing the door on what they felt for you? Those questions echoed inside their mind while everyone around them waited for an answer. And although nobody knew it yet, your person was standing at a crossroads that would change everything. The choice was no longer just about marriage. The choice was about truth. It was about whether they would continue pretending they had forgotten you or finally admit that no matter how much time had passed, no matter how much pressure surrounded them, they still carried your memory in a place nobody else could reach. And as the room waited for their response, they slowly realized that the hardest battle was not against family expectations. The hardest battle was against a heart that refused to let you go. Don't skip. The silence after that realization felt heavier than anything your person had ever experienced. Everyone around them believed they were simply taking time to think about a marriage proposal. But inside, an entirely different battle was unfolding. Their heart was forcing them to confront truths they had avoided for far too long. Every excuse they had used to convince themselves that you no longer mattered was beginning to fall apart. The walls they had built around their emotions were cracking, and behind those walls stood the same person who had occupied their thoughts for much longer than they ever admitted. You. One relative finally spoke again, trying to break the uncomfortable tension. They smiled and reminded your person that nobody finds a perfect situation in life and that sometimes people simply have to make a practical choice. Others quickly agreed. They spoke about responsibility, timing, and how important it was to stop looking backward and start focusing on the future. On the surface, their advice sounded reasonable. Most people in that room probably would have accepted it without hesitation. But every word felt strangely distant to your person because they knew something nobody else knew. They had tried moving forward. They had tried forgetting. They had tried convincing themselves that what they felt would eventually disappear. Yet here they were, sitting in front of a future everyone wanted for them, unable to stop thinking about someone who wasn't even in the room. The realization became impossible to ignore. The more they tried to imagine saying yes, the more uncomfortable they felt. Not because the person in front of them was wrong. Not because the opportunity was bad. But because deep down they knew their heart wasn't fully available. A part of it still belonged somewhere else. A part of it was still waiting for answers it never received. Don't skip. As the evening continued, the pressure became stronger. Family members began asking direct questions. They wanted certainty. They wanted a decision. They wanted your person to stop hesitating and simply agree. Some became frustrated by the delay. Others worried that they were overthinking. Nobody realized that the hesitation wasn't about fear of commitment. It was about emotional honesty. Your person suddenly imagined what would happen if they said yes. The wedding would move forward. Plans would be made. Families would celebrate. Everyone would be happy. But then another thought followed immediately. What if years later they still thought about you? What if they spent their life wondering what could have happened? What if they smiled on the outside while carrying regret on the inside? That possibility frightened them more than disappointing the people around them. For the first time, they understood that pretending to move on and actually moving on were two very different things. They had mastered the first. They had never achieved the second. The room became quieter as everyone sensed their uncertainty. One family member gently asked if there was a reason they seemed distracted. Another asked whether something was bothering them. Your person wanted to answer honestly, but how could they explain something they barely understood themselves? How could they explain that one person continued affecting their emotions despite time, distance, and circumstances? So they remained quiet. And their silence spoke louder than any explanation ever could. Every minute that passed made one thing clearer. The issue wasn't the proposal. The issue wasn't marriage. The issue was you. Because no matter how hard they tried to focus on the future being offered to them, their heart kept returning to the same place. The same memories. The same feelings. The same unanswered connection. And that connection refused to disappear. Don't skip. Then something unexpected happened. A conversation started nearby between two relatives who believed your person wasn't paying attention. They were discussing relationships and casually mentioned how some people never truly forget the one they loved most. The comment was simple. It wasn't directed at anyone. Yet those words hit your person harder than anything else that evening. Never truly forget. The phrase echoed inside their mind. Because deep down they knew it described exactly what they had been experiencing. They hadn't forgotten you. Not really. They had simply become better at hiding it. They buried the emotions beneath daily routines. They distracted themselves whenever memories surfaced. They avoided situations that reminded them of you. But forgetting? That never happened. And now, surrounded by expectations and pressure, they could no longer pretend otherwise. The truth was standing directly in front of them. Every major decision still led back to you. Every vision of the future somehow included you. Every attempt to replace what they felt had failed. And suddenly they realized why. Because some connections don't disappear just because people stop talking. Some feelings don't fade simply because time passes. Some stories remain unfinished no matter how much distance separates two people. The thought overwhelmed them. For a moment, they excused themselves from the room and stepped outside. The night air felt colder than expected. Everything became quiet. No relatives. No expectations. No pressure. Just their thoughts. And unfortunately for them, every thought led back to you. Standing alone under the night sky, your person finally admitted something they had been avoiding for far too long. If you truly meant nothing anymore, this decision would have been easy. If they had truly moved on, they would have already said yes. If their heart had genuinely let go, there would be no confusion. But confusion existed. Hesitation existed. Because the feeling still existed. And that truth changed everything. As they stood there, they wondered where you were. They wondered whether you ever thought about them. They wondered whether the connection they felt was one-sided or shared. Most of all, they wondered whether they were about to make a mistake they could never undo. Back inside, everyone continued waiting for an answer. But outside, your person was finally facing a question much bigger than marriage. A question they could no longer escape. Was their future really somewhere else? Or had their heart been trying to lead them back to you all along? Don't skip. Your person stood there for a long moment, staring into the night as if the answer they were searching for might suddenly appear in front of them. And in that quiet moment, one truth became impossible to deny. No matter how much pressure surrounded them, no matter how many people expected a different choice, they could not honestly promise their future to someone else while their heart was still speaking your name in silence. When they finally walked back into that room, everyone looked at them expecting certainty, but instead they calmly admitted that they were not ready to say yes. The room fell silent. Some were shocked, some were disappointed, and others simply could not understand. Yet for the first time that entire day, your person felt peace. They had stopped pretending. They had stopped fighting what their heart already knew. The marriage discussion ended without the answer everyone expected, but it revealed something far more important. It revealed that despite time, distance, and pressure, you still held a place inside their heart that nobody else could replace. And as everyone slowly left that room, your person carried only one thought with them. The story they were being asked to end was the very story their heart still wanted to continue. The end.